Let me share my screen. Okay, is my screen visible? Someone please confirm. Thank you. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So today I wanted to cover in the last lab assignment there were some concepts such as request parser and Marshall width and also HTTP exception. So these were some of the concepts that I couldn't cover the last day. So I wanted to cover this. Also tomorrow is week 7 due date. So some of these concepts I also wanted to cover. So I will share this document first in the chat. So I will share it and I will pin it. Just check it once. Okay, so yeah, I have pinned it. Week 7 deadline extension, I am actually not, I cannot really comment on that. Okay, so just prepare accordingly. Okay, so in REST API we were doing in week 6. This is actually a week 6 content part. So actually what is exactly REST API? Okay, so an API is the full form is application programming interface, right? So it actually, what does an API actually do? So it actually allows the communication between two software applications. Okay, so imagine the front end and the back end. So API can actually allow you to communicate between the front end and the back end. Okay, so suppose in mat 2, which you will do later on, you will learn that API is allowing you to send data from the front end, where you will use view, to send it to the back end where you will use Flask, and it is actually happening quite smoothly. Okay, over here in your this is just a like introduction to your API part. So right now you are just communicating backend to via backend. Okay, and you are using REST API for that. REST API, as we learned in the last yeah, yes, Bhumika.
Ma'am, sorry, ma'am, but it is not getting live streamed in YouTube.
Yeah, yeah, I am just I have just started the local recording, and this will be uploaded later on to YouTube in the video section. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. So now what is REST API? REST API, as I covered in the last session, REST stands for Representational State Transfer. It is actually an architectural design for designing the network applications. Okay, and what does REST API exactly do? It makes sure that the APIs that we are designing follows only the HTTP methods. Okay, so what are those HTTP methods? Those are get, post, put, and delete. Okay, for the standard HTTP methods. So now if you saw in our last lab assignment, we used something like this. They were called the resource, and we imported those from Flask RESTful. Okay, so in the top part we had like from Flask RESTful. Okay, I think I had closed it accidentally. Okay, so I think I will open it. So just give me a minute. Okay, so if I have it open alongside with this, it will actually help you a little bit. So just give me a second. I will open that folder and documents, and it was LA. I forgot the name. It was this one, if I'm not wrong. Okay, so if you see over here, let me go full screen and control plus. Okay, okay. So if you see over here, we are importing from Flask, import Flask, and then make response. Okay, so according to now, this should have been clear that what the make response and from Flask what this part does. Okay, so now we will just be concentrating on this. This is the new part. So from Flask RESTful, import resource API fields, Marshall with, and request parser. Okay, so first we will focus on the resource part. What does the resource part exactly do? Okay, so resource over here which we are importing is actually a class based approach, okay, to creating endpoints, API endpoints in Flask RESTful. Okay, so suppose you have something like Okay, today we will actually discuss like in the lab assignment, in the previous lab assignment we use something like Marshall with resource API, those stuffs, right? So that, and then I will cover week 7 concepts and few numericals in your practice assignments. Okay. Okay, so from resource, that if you saw in the previous lab assignment, that actually stands for like for creating the endpoints in the API. Like after you create the endpoints, which we did in the very end of the code, we actually have to pass something, right? So in the, when we are sending a post request, so suppose slash course or slash student, we are trying to create a resource in the database, right? So that is when we will use the resource. Okay, so for using the resource, we have to define the methods get, post, put, and delete. Otherwise, inside the, we cannot use that resource. So how do we exactly use that resource? We say like we define the API like this, like class course API, and then inside of that we provide the resource part. Okay, and then so what does it tell Flask? It tells Flask that we will provide you certain resources inside of this API that we will pass, and then you can handle it accordingly inside of your code. Okay, so the resource, what does the resource exactly refer to over here? For slash suppose let us take a endpoint for example, so let us take slash student over here. So if you remember, I was actually creating a student in the end, so that student, like student with name ABC, roll number 123, like that, that would be a particular resource for that particular Flask endpoint, for that particular endpoint, API endpoint. Okay, so this is also like a user resource can also have a get method. Also like each of this has like four HTTP methods, all of the four standard HTTP methods. Okay, so the post is sending the resource to the database using this API endpoint. Put is updating the database, and delete is also deleting it. Okay, and get is fetching the resource. Okay, then comes the API. What does API do over here? API is something which you saw in the beginning that we were using. Let us go back again. In the beginning that we were using the API part, if you come over here, in the beginning that we were using, like we were feeding API of app. Okay, so what does this mean exactly? So API is actually the, this is actually the core component of the, that turns the Flask application into a RESTful API. Okay, so it manages all of the resource classes and routes them to a specific URL. So this is actually saying that for this particular application we will be using API and Flask RESTful from, and we are importing that API from Flask RESTful. Okay, and then afterwards in the end of the code, if you saw, we are actually defining the routes. Okay, the, that is the, this and the initialization are the most important part, because if you see over here, we are using API dot add resource. Okay, that API is the one that we are defining in the beginning of the application. Okay, that is the same API. Okay, this one, API equals to API of app. Okay, so this says that we will be using API for a core component in our application, and whatever resource we are, what the resource that we just imported from Flask beforehand, we will be passing that into the endpoint or the specific URLs that we are defining inside of Flask RESTful. Okay, and then afterwards, then this is just an example usage. Then comes the fields. Okay, if you remember, this is the part of the field. So this is the fields, the student field, the course fields. Okay, these are the parts of the fields. So what does the field stand for? The fields are actually like it is used to structure the response that we will pass inside of the API. Okay, okay, I need to go slow. Okay, okay. So what does the fields exactly do? So it is actually used to define the structured response from the API. Okay, so suppose you are passing a particular response or a like resource inside of the Flask RESTful. So remember what we were referring to as resource, we were using the student. So we took an example of a student endpoint. Okay, so we are passing a particular post request inside of the API, and we are passing a student, we are trying to add a student. Okay, and then we are sending an API request for that. So what will happen if there is no particular like a format for that particular student to be added inside of the database? So suppose again we will take a previous example. You go to a particular website, you are trying to sign in, but that sign in requires you to have a numerical password, but instead of writing a numerical password, you are entering an alphanumeric password. Okay, so of course that won't work. Okay, so that is when this fields comes into play. Okay, fields actually makes sure that whatever input or resource you are inputting inside of the using the URL in with an API, that is actually formatted using whatever you are passing it as. So suppose if the fields has been said to be as string, as over here, let us come back again. Okay, so shall I zoom in a bit? Okay, so over here, since student ID has been said to be fields dot integer, so it should be integer only. Okay, like 1 2 3 4, like that. Okay, also first name has been said to be fields dot in string, so it should be string only. Okay, then comes boolean and list. Okay, these are some of the common fields that you can use. And why are we using fields? It is actually like it prevents exposing unnecessary database fields in the API responses, and it standardizes the API responses for front end consumption. Okay, so suppose why are you using the API in the first place? To make it easier for the backend and the front end to communicate. Because if you use the HTML, like normally when you will build your mad one application, or suppose how you are doing your lab assignments, you will see that there can be a lots of bugs. Okay, like suppose you have to connect your database to your front end and you are using Jinja, so Jinja can also throw lots of errors, and the database is also not secure. So that is why we generally use APIs to send and receive responses. Okay, and in the real world as well, when you do numericals like the client and the server numericals, you will also see they are also using API responses as well. Okay, so that is why we are using fields over here, especially because it is actually kind of preparing the application for a real world consumption. Okay, so next comes the Marshall width. So if you see, like before each of the APIs over here, I had actually used something called Marshall width. Okay, and then inside of the Marshall width, we are actually passing the course fields. Now these are the fields that I just defined right now. Okay, so let us come back. So what does the Marshall width do? So in your previous in the quiz one, you had learned the concept of decorators and moderators. Okay, so now if something if we use something with the @ symbol, it becomes a decorator in Flask. Okay, so now what does Marshall width exactly do? It is actually kind of decorator that is automatically formatting the response. Okay, so now you have predefined the field, a certain field over here. So suppose that field is student fields. Okay, so now whatever, why are you using Marshall width? Now Marshall width, if you're using, and then whatever the HTTP response, like the HTTP suppose you before get over here you are using Marshall width, then Marshall width will actually format whatever response you are submitting inside of get, and make sure that it follows the format of the course fields. Like for example, inside of course fields, you are trying to send a post request. Okay, and then you instead of like course ID, right now course ID is auto increment, but I am saying, like, take a hypothetical situation, course ID you try to submit a string, it will throw an error. Okay, it won't go into the database. So that is what Marshall width makes sure, that the fields that you have set as, like the course ID should be integer only, it cannot be string. So it makes sure that it is kind of like that. Okay, so why are we using Marshall width? Marshall width actually avoids like manually structuring the JSON responses. Okay, so actually without Marshall width, you actually have to manually structure the JSON responses. So what does that mean? Like each and every response that you are fetching or you are passing through the API, if you see, you have to manually convert it to JSON. Okay, like over here I have done like json.dumps, you have to make it like this. Okay, whatever you are passing inside of the API, or whatever response you try to fetch from the API, for us to understand, or for the Python editor to understand, you have to manually convert it to JSON each time, without, like, if you don't use something like Marshall width over here. Okay, so that will become like quite tedious in the long run. Okay,
Ma'am,
yes, yeah. Hmm.
instead of JSON.terms, we can also write JSONify, right?
Yes, you have to import that accordingly from JSON, but yes, you can use that as well. Okay, so that is why we are using Marshall width over here. Okay, so this is also an example like use case, so you can kind of use it like this. Okay, so Marshall width actually always guarantees that it will be kind of in this type of format, like JSON format. Okay, so next comes the request parser. Okay, so what does the request parser do? So if you see over here, now we are coming into parsers. Okay, so these are the parsers. Okay, so what does the parser do? If you see over here, we have written request parser dot request parser, rec parser dot request parser. Okay, so what does request parser exactly do? Request parser, I know that the spelling is rec pars, but the full form is kind of request parser, okay, is used to validate and parse request arguments, okay. So what does it do? It takes the query parameters, okay, so it takes whatever parameters you are trying to pass. So suppose, if you remember, suppose we let us take a example from the HTML forms, okay. So if you remember in your front end HTML in suppose you are using Jinja and normal Flask, okay, to build a simple web application. You have a form in the front end in HTML and you want to fetch that form data. How will you fetch that? Using Flask, you will use like you will set like id equals to form dot get of id, okay. So but in API something like that, it doesn't happen because Python won't understand what you're trying to send inside of the form, okay. You have to like kind of convert it, okay. Again, the thing is like APIs understand JSON. APIs don't understand string or integer or anything like that. So you have to convert it into something like the language it understands, okay. So that is why when the request parser comes in, so over here what we are doing is, over here we are whatever thing we have to pass inside of the APIs or as the resources in the database that we have to add or send the as a post request inside of the databases we have to add, we are first adding it as an argument using parsers, okay. So let us go back, okay. So it ensures that the requests contain the required parameters and enforces the data types, okay. Again, it ensures that first of all we created the fields make sure that this is the these are the only data types that are followed, okay. Afterwards we are using the parser. What does parser do? Parser fetches the these types of data, like from when you're trying to send any type of any type of resource, it fetches that those particular data points, okay. So imagine it as sending a data to a form and then fetching it inside of the backend. And afterwards we are using Marshall with to make sure that the course fields, again this fields like the course id remains as an integer, course name remains as a string, these are followed, okay. So these are the basic ways you can make sure that your API is working, okay. So now the features of request parser is yes, yes, Preeti.
Ma'am, this like the other like when we get it from the command line or when we get it from the form, this again that like student underscore parse dot parse args, that is again a dictionary, right?
Yes, it's JSON. So whenever you see a like a curly braces, within curly braces it is actually JSON format, yes. So you can say it's dictionary.
So basically, it's JSON, is it like that?
Yeah, within curly braces, if it has double quotes, then it's JSON.
So, but we because the args is equal to like that you had given a variable and then we
Yes.
got like args dot get like that we did, right? So dot get we
Mhm.
normally use with dictionaries only, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Those two are the kind of the same format, okay.
So even from HTML when we get, we also get it like the request dot form dot get like that we do that, right?
HTML from HTML. Yeah, yeah, from the HTML, like from the front end, when we are trying to fetch it from the to the back end, we have to convert it in a way that back end understands, right? So yeah, yeah, kind of like it you have to convert it like that in
So
JSON way.
basically, the all three formats are the same. Even when the sys.argv when we used, even there,
No, no,
that is
no, no,
also
no.
the
No, 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 no. If we do the like type of sys.argv, it was, if I'm not wrong, it was something different. Okay, it was different. Like if I pass it as an like app.py and then write a system argument and then write like print type of sys.argv.type, it will throw like something different. It won't say JSON, normal JSON. Okay, it looks the same to us, but it the bits are different. Okay,
Okay,
it
so that
stores differently.
request.form dot that is a dictionary and this is a JSON.
Yes, yes, yes. It looks it like it will look the same to us. Okay, but
Similar.
it
And but
stores,
we are
yeah,
using dot get for both, right? For
yeah,
even for this
yeah.
and even
Dot
for
get
that
to
HTML, yeah, HTML entries also we use dot get only, right?
yes, yes, yes. Form dot get. Yes, request dot form dot get.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
difference is over here we will first set the arguments. We will set a variable called arguments, and then we will set that arguments to parsers. After that, we will use that arguments to get the things. Okay.
Got it, ma'am. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So okay, request the what are the features are that it allows the specific argument types, okay, like integer, string and float, and it can mark the arguments as required. Okay, so you can like kind of use the request parser however you want. Okay, and then afterwards comes the http exceptions. If you saw in our lab assignment, we have to use some type of errors. Okay, so there were two types of errors that I used, that were the found error and the not given error. Okay, so suppose if something was not missing, it was not given, like the course name was not given, then we would have raised the not given error. I hope that I am making it correctly. If course is none, yeah, if course is none, no, 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 if course name is none, yeah, course name is not given, yeah, I said it correctly. Okay, if course name is not given, if course code is not given inside of the post, when we are trying to send a post request, it will say not given error. It will raise a not given error along with a personal like custom status message and a custom code. Okay, along with whatever error code it you want to send. Okay, so so how will we do that exactly? So we will have to import something called http exceptions from workzook dot exceptions. Okay, you will have to like you will use some of you will use this later on in your mad1 projects as well. It's called Workzookberg as well. Like you will import that you for using passwords, hashing passwords and everything. Okay, for when you have to like log in and log out in your applications, that log in and log out of the pages. Okay, so http exceptions, what do they do? They are actually handling for http errors in Flask. Okay, so basically what is happening over here, what is the http exceptions exactly? So http exception is like when something like when you're sending a request like get, suppose. Okay, and it is not able to fetch that a particular page. Like if it's not able to fetch that particular page, then what will happen? It will show us a error code. Okay, now what is that error code? Let us ignore that for now. So if the page is not able to show, then there is a http error or an http exception. Okay, because why? Because the http method that we are trying to send, it is not able to reach that. Okay, so that is when we will throw this type of exceptions. Okay, so now we had to customize the error codes and the messages, so that is why we are importing this from Workzookberg. Okay, so also these are the common http error codes, like 400 is bad request, 404 is not found, and 500 is internal server error, as we saw while debugging in the let me go back. Okay, as we saw while debugging in the terminal. Okay, like if I okay, I haven't run it yet. Okay, I will run it later on and show. Okay, okay, like in the terminal, if you were running your application and if you sent a get request, then you will see that it shows that get http whatever link you have sent, and then the status code, like either 200 if it's successful, 200. Okay, and then 404 if it's not found. Okay, and then if only use it like http exceptions can be used when you have like any type of customized messages. Okay, and then afterwards this is like kind of the summary, like what we did. Okay, and then I kind of wanted to code like basic application. Okay, like what will you do exactly? How do you set up a Flask RESTful application? Okay, so first of all, you import a Flask, import from Flask, you import Flask, and then from Flask RESTful you import the resource and the API part. Okay, and then immediately you initialize the Flask to name, and then API equals to API. Okay, so what whenever you are importing something like Flask, like suppose in the backend server, I mean you are importing something, you have to immediately initialize it. Okay, so we are initializing Flask as name. Okay, and then we are initializing app. Okay, and then how do we set an API exactly? Okay, so let me just copy this. Just give me a second, I will just copy this. I have written the code previously so that I won't take much time. Okay, so yeah. Okay, is this visible or shall I zoom in a bit more? Is this okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, so what are we doing over here? So basically we are saying that we are first importing Flask, and then from Flask RESTful we are importing resource and API. Okay, and then immediately afterwards we are initializing both of the applications, and then afterwards we don't ignore whatever request parsers and course fields and everything. This is just a simple API application. Okay, so from class hello world, what we are doing, we are saying that we have an API over here. It's called class hello world. Okay, and then inside of the class hello world API, we will have a resource, we will pass resources inside of that. Okay, and then what is the first method for APIs? That is get. Okay, and then inside of get we will pass self, and then what will get do? Get will actually return the message. This is also a JSON format. So message, like you will see curly braces within double quotes, it will say message, and it will say hello world. Okay, and then immediately afterwards you have to, like whenever you define any type of API, you have to add the resource. Okay, API dot add resource to make it make sure that this make the app know that yes, I will use this as an API, and the link on the link to that particular API. Okay, so let us run this application, Python app.py, and I will just send the rapid API request. Just give me a second. Yeah. Okay, so this, what is the link? Okay, so what is the link that we are adding over here? The link we are adding over here is slash. Okay, and what does the get say over here? The get just returns message hello world. Okay, so what will happen when we are sending the port is the local port is 127.0 is to 5000. Okay, this is the local port for backend. Okay, so what will be the get request? Where will we send the get request? Why are we sending the get request over here? So by we are sending the get request because this is the method that we are defining. Okay, if we had defined a post request over here, we would have sent a post request. Okay, so since we are defining a get request over here, we will send a get request only. So afterwards we will send a get request where what will be the URL be. So first you will write the local host URL, you will write a slash afterwards. Why? Because we have a slash, the URL over here is the slash or the route. Okay, or the like the root, the home directory. Okay, so the app first you will make sure that your application is running. Okay, and then immediately afterwards we will do a send, we will click the send button. Okay, so see this, there is a message called hello world. Okay, so your app will actually do whatever you want it to do. Okay, so over here it has said hello. So what will happen if we had send a post request? Okay, and the message, like if it was let me just experiment with it. I hope that it didn't stop running. Yeah, it didn't stop running. And the link, let us change everything. Link, let us say it was post. Okay, so the link we need to send is as post. Okay, and the it should be post as well. Okay, so okay, 500 internal error. Okay, okay, post request can be sent like this because for post we actually have to make it so that there is a database and it is able to add the resource. Why? Because in post, the resources will actually get added. Okay, so it is trying to send the request to someone. Okay, also over here, why is this saying that the okay, why is this saying that the method is not allowed? Because over here it was post. Okay, I didn't change the method. Okay, another thing. Okay, so type error is not serializable. Okay, I made same. Okay, I will just stick to whatever message it was. Yeah, I'll just skip it. Yeah, okay. Okay, so this was get, and then inside of get we are just passing self over here, and then we are saying that return the message hello world. Okay, and then we are trying to say like slash. Okay, we, this is the route that we are passing it as. Okay, whatever route you want to define get as. Okay, over here you will see that route. Okay, and then I hope that the changes, sometimes my VS code actually doesn't understand changes. Okay, I make, so it gets kind of a problem. Okay, so over here I made some changes to the routes. Okay, so whatever routes you are defining over here, those will be the ones that are getting recognized as the routes. Okay, the app will recognize that, but automatically. Okay, so since we said that the slash get route will be over here, so it recognized that we are want to say that that is the route getting associated with the get method. Okay, and as soon as we sent the get request over here, it sent the this was the request. Okay, you want to go to the request, you can send like over here. Since it's a get method, it won't really send any type of request. If it was a post, you would have been able to see the request, what type of request you are trying to send. We will go back to the response and we will see what response it is trying to send. So it was 200. Okay, this was the status code. So in the responses, actually, if the response is actually okay, it will automatically send you a 200. Okay, you don't need to manually add a comma 200 status code over here. Okay, so it will automatically send you an okay. And if you see the terminal over here, that was the slash get that I added. Then HTTP, it is saying that this is the HTTP and this is the protocol version. The slash 1.1 is the protocol version, HTTP is the protocol, this is the slash route, this is the HTTP method, and this is the status code. Okay, so this is like kind of the basic of what the API is doing. Okay, so we have to run it like this, and this was the output. I have written it like this. Okay, and next comes like how to use the REST APIs using CRUD operation. So this is what exactly we did in the previous lab assignments. Okay, so I won't go much into detail. If you want, you can and you can kind of go through this doc. I have also written how to handle it. This is a kind of part that is not necessary, but if you want, you can use it. So using Flask JWT. Okay, using handling the authentication. Okay, I will now move on to week 7 content. Okay, so any doubts regarding what we did using Flask RESTful? Like I just did it kind of so that it is more easier to understand what we did in the lab assignment using APIs and what we used in the APIs. Okay, so any doubts regarding the lab assignment, Flask RESTful? Shall we move on to the week 7 content?
Ma'am,
Ma'am,
Yeah.
ma'am, in the code you have written add resource. So in that, we have which link we have to write first, get or post? That is confusing.
Whatever you are defining first, or like if you have defined get first, then you can write get first. Okay, but the thing is like the API will understand automatically, because when you are trying to send over here, get wasn't really having any type of resources inside of the database, right? That is why it actually sends it automatically. So if you are having a post request, it will automatically end it by like this, like /course/student, like that. Okay, but whatever you're defining first, try to take the link first. Okay,
Okay, okay, ma'am.
yeah, someone else was also unmute and ask.
yeah, ma'am, is it a little bit hard to understand in fast go?
Which part is it hard to understand?
No, this complete things means
Hmm,
first time it will be very tough,
hmm,
isn't
hmm,
it, ma'am?
hmm. Yeah, yeah, actually, yeah, it is actually, it is kind of hard. Okay, I also faced problems. So one thing that you can do, I will add it. Okay, so Flask RESTful documentation. Okay, I will add this. So this is actually a very helpful site. Okay, don't worry, because it will take some time. It even took me time. Okay, so don't worry about it. Just if you get stuck, go through this documentation, the Flask RESTful documentation, the API documentation, because this is a actually very helpful site. Okay, it helps you understand everything. Like if you see the code once, they will like you will understand it once. Okay, just yeah. Also you will get it eventually. Okay, like just don't try to, sorry, don't try to like force yourself to learn just like in the first day. It took me like after mad 1 learning mad 1 to get APIs and stuff. So yeah, okay, don't worry. Okay, moving on. Shall we move on to week 7 concepts? Like week 7 concepts has some the of the numericals as well. Okay, and from week 7 onwards we have numericals again, and these numericals will become more tedious as it goes on. Okay, because now the bandwidth, the bus width, and the data centers, the DBMS numericals mainly comes in. Okay, like the what should I say, the overall data center and everything. Okay, so yeah, starting okay, so starting the week 7 one. Okay, so okay, so lecture 1 contains the memory hierarchy, okay, and the backend system. So yes, Preeti, yes.
Yes, ma'am. That in I think in the delete. Sorry, I'm going back to week 6. That
Yeah.
this part.
Hmm, hmm,
When we were using delete, we're defining the delete this na action.
hmm,
So we were
hmm,
like using that filter method dot scalar, and at
hmm,
that time
hmm,
you had mentioned some reason for why we were using dot scalar and not dot first.
hmm,
I
hmm, hmm.
forgot that. What was it? Really? Why were we using dot scalar?
I forgot that. Wait, I need to see the code. Wait, just give me a second. Okay, so even I forgot that. Mainly for delete, if I'm not wrong. Wait, return the first element. Wait, VS Code should if like if I do it like this, VS Code should give it. It like for dot first will return the first element, right? Always the first element to relate it to it. But if we use the dot scalar part, it should like student is also associated with it has relations, the student table mainly, it has relations with the other tables as well, right? So what will happen if a student is registered inside of one course, and then the student, that particular student has the enrollment ID as well, right? This student ID, this is linked to the student ID, right? So what will happen if the student over here is deleted, then that student over here, the student ID will stay inside of the enrollment table. Okay, so that is why we are using the dot scalar instead of the dot first, because the dot first will just delete the student from the student table, and not from the student from the enrollment table. Okay, we need to delete all the instances of the student, of that particular student, as they leave the institution, from all of the tables, from course, enrollment, and as well as student. Okay.
So basically, you don't want the backref to be like
Yes.
applicable, is it? That is
Yes,
why you
yes.
are using dot scale.
Yeah. You can say that.
Okay. And one more thing, ma'am, in this backref, we use students instead of student. Any
Yeah.
particular reason why?
Yeah, so over here I was thinking like for using backref, like we have to just refer to something different. Okay, so like I was thinking like using students to refer to this particular table instead of using student. That will kind of help me to differentiate what I am trying to reference to it. So like kind of making it stand out. But it doesn't really matter, like you can use student as well, it doesn't matter at all.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Also another thing I tell every time, like don't forget to comment this one out. Okay, so yeah, moving on. Okay, so week 7. Okay, okay, so week 7, just give me a second, I will just check when the lab assignment due date is. Just give me a second. Lab assignment week 7, okay. 8th. Okay. Okay, got it. Because I had like some of this for lab assignment as well. Okay. Week okay, starting week 7. Okay, in lecture 1 it was covered like memory hierarchy. Okay, what is memory? Inside of memory hierarchy there are some backend systems. Okay, so what are backend systems? So types of storage elements, there are on-chip registers. Okay, so on-chip registers actually have 10 to hundreds of bytes. Okay, so the purpose of this are like there are tiny super fast memory locations. Okay, they are inside the CPU. What is the CPU? The CPU is the central processing unit. Okay, so these are like these are like parts of kind of like the parts of storage. Okay, so these are stored the data. So the function of this is that they store the data for the CPU that it needs, and they try to fetch it immediately. Okay, so like if you have something inside of what will be faster, if you have something inside of like a database that you need to fetch, or like if you have something on hand and the data that you need to fetch that. Okay, so this will be faster because it is on, like it is on site, and if the CPU needs it, it will be able to fetch it immediately for calculations. Okay, so so it will be like a working scratch pad, okay, for the processor. And this is like the fastest type of memory that is available. Okay, so pay attention to this, because like the activity questions are like kind of they come from this. Okay, so I had marked it because the activity questions had answers to this. So yeah. Okay, then comes the SRAM. The SRAM is actually static random access memory. This is the full form of it. And the cache memory of an SRAM is actually 0.1 is to 1 MB. Okay, so the purpose of it is that it is a little bit slower than on-chip registers. Okay, so this is the hierarchy according to the hierarchy. Okay, and the thing is like it's stored like pretty close to the CPU, but it also helps to speed up the data process, but it is not that close as the on-chip registers, so not that fast. Okay, the function is that it actually copies all of the data and the instructions that the CPU might need repeatedly, so that the CPU doesn't have to go all the way inside of the main memory. Okay, so now what is the main memory? The main memory is the DRAM. Okay, also the SRAM is very fast, but it is a more expensive. Okay, so we can only use like small amount as a cache. So now what is the DRAM? The DRAM is the dynamic random access memory, or the main memory. This is also in your computer, this is also known as the RAM. So this is the one that is actually holding all of your data and the programs that you are currently using. Okay, so this is the one that you are using currently. This has like tens to hundreds of GB. So what is the CPU? So that the so that this is the RAM that you are using, right? So inside of the CPU, it can like quickly access that. Okay, so when you open a program, so it is like loading it from your storage. Okay, and it is much faster than the much faster than storage like SSD. Okay, SSD and hard drives, but it is slower than the CPU cache. Okay, so the cache is like kind of faster than the DRAM. Okay, just give me a minute. Okay, just give me a minute. Okay, so DRAM, right? Okay, so the speed is actually much faster than the storage like SSDs and the hard drives. Okay, but it is slower than the CPU cache. Okay, so the SSD, the solid state drive, it is actually like a flash storage. Okay, so if I'm not wrong, is this the one that where you will learn about? Yeah, okay, so yeah, it is. Okay, so the SSD, this is actually kind of like the flash storage. Okay, so the SSD will have like the 100 GB to 1 TB inside of your computer or your laptop. Okay, this is like the permanent type of storage. Okay, so if you see your C drive, D drive, so this will actually have your wherever your files and everything are stored. Okay, even like if you turn your computer off, the cache and the everything like your files in Chrome and everything, those are gone, right? But the SSD is actually kind of permanent. Okay, your stores are your files and everything, those are stored in that your in your local machine, that is inside stored inside of your SSD. Okay, so the SSD actually uses flash memory with no moving parts, and it is actually making it faster than traditional hard drives. Okay, for accessing and saving of data, much faster than hard drives. Okay, so if I'm not wrong, there should be, yeah, okay, so these are the speeds of each of the latency, throughput, and the density. Okay, coming to that, also there is another last thing, that is the magnetic disk. This is the HDD storage. Okay, so this is like the most amount of storage that you can get. This is the 1 TB and up. Okay, the purpose is that you can get suppose you have heard maybe that you can get a hard drive. Okay, the hard drives can store a large amount of data, but they are also more affordable than SSD. Okay, but the thing is like the hard drives, they are quite slow than SSD. Okay, so they are usually used for bulk storage where you don't really need those files much on a daily basis. Okay, so you will see like for like storing libraries or something like that. Okay, so or archive files. So latency, now comes the latency, throughput, and density. So remember this because there can be numericals regarding this. Okay, so what is the latency? Again, latency is the time or the delay it takes for a data packet to travel from a source to a destination. Okay, so lower latency is more desirable. Why is lower latency more desirable? Because of course when a client is requesting something from a server, they would want to receive the response as soon as possible, right? So that is why the lower the latency, it is more desirable. Okay, throughput is the number of data packets that can be transferred from one place to another, given in a given amount of time. Okay, higher is more desirable. So why is higher more desirable? Because it means that the total amount of data, like how much data a client, if a client is wanting amount of data, the higher the amount of data they can receive, that is the like more desirable. Okay, Now, what is density? Density is the amount of data that can be stored in a given amount of physical space. Okay, higher density often leads to more sufficient resource utilization, reduced physical footprint. Okay, so this is these are the parts where these are like register has less latency than SRAM, less than DRAM, less than SSD, and less than HDD. Okay, so this is kind of like that. So what is then what does density say? Density says that the this is the like the in a physical space, this is the amount of data that can be stored. Okay, so of course HDD, which is like which stores the highest amount of data, this will have the highest amount of density as well. Okay, so then comes the computer architecture and the memory hierarchy. Okay, so I have like quite gone inside like quite well as well, so you, if you want, you can get these are theory parts. Okay, so
Ma'am, can you please repeat density?
yeah, sure, sure. Okay, so density is actually like the amount of data that can be it's stored in a given amount of physical space. Okay, so suppose you have like physical in hard drives, those are physical memories, right? So those inside of hard drives, if you want you have been given a particular amount of physical space. Okay, so suppose 5 GB or 6 GB, that is the amount of data that you can store inside of that, that is known as density. Okay, so think about you have like a box like this, and the amount of data you can fit inside of this box, that will be kind of like density. Okay, so what can I say, crowded maybe, crowd. Okay,
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
anything like that. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so this will be okay, so this memory hierarchy. Okay, memory hierarchy, just go through it, just I will cover this one. Okay, memory hierarchy, this is actually CPU registers and caches. There are actually L1, L2, and L3, so three levels. Okay, so these are actually the closest to the CPU. They are actually blazing fast but small in size. Okay, so these are actually kind of more theory concepts, but I would like to go into cold storage. Okay, so what are cold storage basically? Okay, so okay, so yeah, coming to lecture 2. So cold storage is actually a basically data type storage that is for long time retention. Okay, and cold storages are actually, you don't really, there are inside of cold storage, what do? You store those types of data where you won't access it daily, or you won't need it in the recent future. Okay, so if you remember like Amazon Glacier, something like Amazon Glacier or Google Cold Line, where you are storing these types of data. Okay, you won't need it in the recent future, it is for long time storage, and this is actually quite cheaper. Okay, cold storage is actually quite cheaper than other storage options, because you are not fetching the data again and again. Okay, and it is quite like it is also quite efficient, because it is like for infrequent data retrieval. Okay, that is why it is lower costs. Okay, so also like when for backup and everything, cold storage is also quite efficient for that purpose as well. Okay, so one example would be Amazon Glacier. Okay, and you have a like a numerical like this, if I'm not wrong, so I will cover that. Okay, this is lecture 2. So lecture 2, those of you who have PDSA, they would kind of understand lecture 2, because it has the complexity, the complexities of time complexity, if I'm not wrong. So just go through these two links that I have given over here. Okay, O of 1 notation, so big O notation, it has been given. So okay, it's constant time. O of 1 is constant time, and the algorithm, that is also like a searching algorithm. Okay, so the time complexity of a searching algorithm. Okay, so just go through it once. These are the GitHub's official GitHub by PDSA. Okay, PDSA IITM only. So just go through it once for the lecture 2. Okay, there is also a summary table I have given, just go through it once for the lecture 2. If you have any doubts regarding that, then ask me, I will try to clear it. Okay, also lecture 3, there are in lecture 3 there is, if I'm not wrong, the SQL versus no SQL, no, it was, I think, yeah, in lecture 4. Okay, so in lecture 3 there are concepts such as tabular databases. Okay, so what are tabular databases? So tabular databases like MySQL organizes the data inside of rows and tables. Okay, inside of tables with rows and columns. Okay, so as we saw in like the databases, the SQLite 3. Okay, so SQLite, as I showed you, the databases that are getting created, those are like kind of tabular databases. Okay, now those tabular databases will have indexes, Okay, so what are we saying that what do we basically mean by indexes? Okay, so this is what indexing and indexes mean. Okay, these are shortcuts. Shortcuts, what do the shortcuts mean? So what do indexes basically do? They actually speed up searching inside of the database by pre-organizing certain columns or by creating an index on specific columns. Okay, and we allow the database to find values in those columns. Okay, so what are we doing basically? So if you know our b tree index or hash indexes, okay, so that is how we are creating certain shortcuts. Okay, so I will just open b tree index, b tree index. Okay, okay, so this is something called a b tree index. Okay, so why is this called a b tree index? Because first, when you have a data, suppose you have 13 as a data. Okay, this is a, actually you will learn about this more in dbms, but I am just covering it for conceptual purposes. Okay, so suppose you have three numbers, 13, 19, and 11. Okay, now 13, you have three slots open. Okay, you see over here you have three slots open. Okay, so you write 13 over here, then 9 over here, and then 11 over here. But the problem is that 9 and 11 are actually less than 13. Okay, so now what will happen? The numbers that are less than a particular number will actually come to the left side of it. Okay, so now 13 will actually come to this side, like the two numbers 9 and 11 will actually come to this side. Now 9 and 11 have come to this side, so there was two slots open like this, and then 16, we have another number 16 that is actually greater than 13, so that will come to the right side. Okay, so this is kind of like, I know this is very vague, but this is actually a b tree index. Okay, this is how indexing is done. So this is what indexing does. It divides the data into something like this, and then it helps it to search through the data very quickly. That is that is how b tree index works. So so what I showed you was b tree index. Yes, Jaydev.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ma'am, and this B-tree is the what we have studied in DBMS, isn't it? Same?
DBMS in later weeks you will cover b tree. I am not sure if it was, if I'm no if I remember correctly, it was after week 7, so you haven't covered b tree yet. DBMS, yes. If you have completed DBMS, yes, you have studied B tree. The same B tree is the one.
Not PDSA1, no?
Yeah, PDS one as
B-
well. Yeah.
BST binary search tree.
No, no, no. Binary search tree, kind of the same. Like AVL tree, binary search tree. Kind of, you can say the concepts are the same. Okay, but B tree
Okay.
uses indexing.
Yeah, maybe this is B plus tree or B tree, maybe.
Yeah, this mainly the concept is like you have some slots open. There is a few numbers. You put the number somewhere, and then afterwards the lesser number comes to the left side. The higher number comes to the right side. Okay, and then if slots are open, then we write it according to that. Okay, it is kind of complex, like inserting inside of the b tree, but numericals like that do come in dbms, not in mad one. Okay, so in mysql, okay, we mysql we are using b trees or hash indexes. Okay, so hash index, if I remember correctly, there is I am not sure. Yeah, in DBMS only. DBMS there are numericals hash indexes. Like there are certain hashes where there are there are 9 positions left, and you have certain numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4. In Mad one as well. If I in Mad one you don't have like that. Okay, so in hash index, what does hash index stand for? So there is certain imagine it like this. Okay, just see, ignore the numbers. Okay, ignore the numbers. You have 3 positions. Okay, so ignore the number over here, just imagine 3 positions like this. So 3 hashes are there. Okay, so we have a number 13 now. Okay, we have a number 13, we need to insert it somehow. So now you would have been given a function like mod of something. Okay, so you have to insert 13 somewhere. So now you will do mod of 13, and then you will see where the hash is coming out to be. Okay, so now if the hash is like the mod is coming out, like the mod is coming out to be 1, then 13 will take the position of 1. Okay, afterwards if you have like numbers like 2 or 5, and then 2's mod is also coming out to be 1, but the position 1 is taken. So now 2 will be inserted into the position 2, 5 will be inserted into position 5 3. Okay, so hash index is kind of done like that. Okay, So if you want to use SQL in B3, I forgot to cover that. In B3 we can use comparison operators like equals to, greater than, less than, equals to, like this, and between in SQL. Okay, like SQL language, I mean. Okay, and then searches as well in the long term. And then there is also like select star from table name where column like pat percentage. Okay, what does the percentage actually stands for a wildcard. Okay, this will fetch all of the items from the B tree index to find names that are starting with pat. Okay, so this is how you use an SQL query in B tree indexes. Okay, now coming to the hash indexes. How do hash indexes work? Hash indexes use a hash function to find the exact location of a value directly, making them very fast for the exact matches. Okay, like if you are matching exactly, then of course it will be really really fast. Okay, hash indexes actually don't use all of the operators as B tree indexes, but they use are the best for comparing like equals to. Okay, so they're the best for that. Okay, not good with ranges. Okay, so like if you have like exact matches like equals to pat, then hash indexes work really well for that. But for ranges like between 100 and 200, B tree indexes work better. Okay, so also hash, as it as you know, hashes work with a key value pair. So hashes will over here as well, hash index will work with a key value lookup. Okay, this is for the summary. In lecture 4 there is actually SQL versus no SQL. Okay, so this is a query of this is a example of an SQL query example. So the SQL inside of SQL, like select all rows from the users. Okay, so how will you do it in a form of SQL? You will say select start. Similarly in Python, is if we use like import, if you remember from PyHTML, we were saying like import PyHTML, or from like using star or something like that. Okay, we were importing everything from PyHTML. So similarly we are just saying like select star from users in SQL. Okay, but over here like no SQL, how will we use no SQL? We will just say db.users.find. Okay, to find from all of the users collection. Okay, so these are some of the differences between user like SQL and no SQL part. So again SQL will be like using Postgres SQL or something like that, and no SQL will be MongoDB. Okay, and these are some of other examples like deleting the documents of the user collections. And over here if you try to delete, you will have to do delete from users where age greater than 30. Okay, so you can go through this. Okay, what are the alternate ways to store data? So again there are some alternate ways to store data except from like these indexes or something. Okay, so there are like key value pairs, key value stores, like the data can be stored in key value pairs like dictionary purposes. Okay, so for that you will use Redis or Python dictionary. Okay, and then with the it can be like Redis is basically known, Redis is something you will use in mat 2. So what is Redis known for? Redis you will use for caching. Okay, and then session management, like the timeout for your mat 2 project you will use like Redis. Okay, like you will set a timeout, like timeout after 5 minutes or whatever you set it as, or 5 seconds. Okay, that you for that you will also use Redis to run the backend server for Celery as well. Okay, so for the Redis you can also use for key value stores. Okay, so or storing the data as a dictionary. Column stores. Okay, column stores, that means that storing the data in columns instead of rows. Okay, so those are really good for like a large scale data analysis. Also graph databases. The graph databases like data stored in nodes and edges, in nodes and edges. You can also find it in a you will learn it like nodes and edges, like means like if you're going from one node to another and you are storing some kind of data. Okay, like somehow in mad 1 in previous weeks you had learned like data actually travels like that from node to node. Okay, so that is like you can store data like that as well. So time series data, like data organized from time sets are ideal for tracking trends. Okay, also search engine like optimized by for the data analytics. Okay, and also like this is something that we covered in week 5, acid properties of the databases. So atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability. Okay, and then in lecture 5 there was like scaling. What is scaling? Okay, this is something that will come in your numericals later on. You will see that we can either scale up or scale out. Okay, so what is scaling? Basically, scaling up is like increasing the power of a single machine. Okay, so that means like upgrading something. Okay, and then scaling out means adding more machines basically. Okay, so or like just reaching out. Okay, so distributing the workload. Okay, so replication and redundancy also, you have like kind of questions like this in your activity questions. Replication means like making copies of the data across different servers or locations, and redundancy actually means like the adding extra components or systems that can take over in case of failure. Okay, so always remember that both are not the same, and both have quite a few differences between them. Okay, this is also acid versus base, you can go through it. Okay, also there is a last part, if I'm not wrong, does it have any more lectures? No. Okay, so okay, so the in the lecture 6 it has been covered like SQL injection. Okay, so what is SQL injection? Mainly this is a part of SQL injection. So if you remember, if you okay, if you know SQL injection, like suppose there is a thread in a in your database. A database uses a secret key. Okay, if the database has been compromised, then the backend has been compromised, and your like there are cyber attacks and everything inside of the database, right? So how do they do that? So that is when an SQL injection comes in. Okay, so this is an SQL injection example. So that is when sometimes like using a simple front end, or like using a front end like this, you are trying to access the database. Okay, somehow, so you have a form over here. Okay, in this particular form you are actually saying that this form has a fatal error. Okay, it is saying name equals to username, and then name equals to password, and then type password. Okay, so that means that the whenever we are trying to store something inside of the database, the password and the name will actually be stored as null, because we are actually not passing it equally inside of the form. Okay, so that will cause any type of problem. So what will happen? This will cause an SQL injection. So what does SQL injection mainly mean? It means that when someone is trying to get inside of the database. Okay, so like if someone enters a normal username and password, what will happen? This will return a valid query. Okay, but the problem is like, what if someone enters a password like null over here? Okay, like space, or the name is null. Okay, then it will actually cause like someone to bypass the authentication. Okay, so if this happens when the security parameters is not handled correctly. Okay, so this is how cyber attacks happens, and the database is threatened. Also, preventing SQL injections is like using prepaid statements like this. Suppose you are handling it correctly, when name is equals to question mark, and like this we will execute like this. Okay, so we will say db.execute query and name the password. So this will kind of make sure, also using like authentication. Okay, what this authentication mean, like that says that if you're not authenticated, then you won't be able to access the page. Okay, so these are kind of some of the these are kind of some of the safety measures you can take to make your application more secure. ORM libraries, also object relational mapping. So you can also use libraries like that for SQL Alchemy. Okay, to automatically handle the input sanitization. So you are using SQL Alchemy right now, right? So what does ORM basically stand for? ORM stands for object relational mapping. Okay, SQL, if we use SQL directly inside of Python won't be able to understand what we are trying to say, right? So that is why we use something like libraries like SQL Alchemy. We are basically using an object relational mapper, or SQL Alchemy over here in this case, to convert the language of SQL into something so that Python understands what we are trying to say, to convert the database. Okay, to make sure that yes, this is what the applications, or this is what we want to this is what we want to convert the database into. Okay, so that is what ORM basically stands for. Okay, so now web application security, these are some of the things that you can integrate inside of the database. Like what will happen when SQL injection happens, like a code injection that is like exploits the vulnerabilities inside of the database layer, and buffer overflow. Yeah, this is something you can overgo a little bit. Okay, also HTTP purpose. Okay, like the limitations, like the SSL and the TLS for the secure data transmission. As I said, you can integrate something inside of your code. Like suppose someone is not authenticated inside of like suppose you have not entered the valid password or a valid username, then you won't be able to enter the application. Okay, then you won't be allowed to enter the application at all. And like you in your Flask application, you will learn to handle that accordingly. Okay, like if you use work Zuckerberg, you can like say, if the user, if user is not in session, then you will be redirected, like return redirect to slash. Okay, you can do it like that in your in Flask, for example, I am saying. Okay, so over here, like as I have used over here, like user will get username and form, like user, if not username or not password, over here I'm just saying that we can authenticate the admin, and if the username and the passwords don't match, then we can kind of say that we will redirect them. You can use it like this, or you can use the database over here. Like suppose the username, yes, the recording will be provided. Like, suppose the username and the password, you are like it is not in the database and you are using SQL Alchemy, then you can say if username is not in, username or password is not in session db.session, then return redirect to slash. What will that do? Then whenever that particular username or that particular user is trying to access that application, then they will be redirected again and again to the root page or the slash. Okay, slash is the root page, so the port 5000, then they won't be able to access the page at all. So that won't cause any type of cyber security problems. Okay, so this is all of the concepts in week 7 that were in week 7. Okay, so any doubts in week 7, or shall we move on to the numericals, because these were all of the concepts in week 7. Okay, any doubts in week 7, or shall we move on to the numericals? Do let me know, because
Yes,
I
ma'am.
have.
Let's
Let's
move.
move on, ma'am.
Okay, okay. So, okay. So in PA, this is actually a numerical of PA. Okay, practice assignment. So we have a DRAM module. Okay. These are basically from week 7 onwards. You have the numericals of magnetic disks and DRAM bus with those type of numericals. Okay, and also some numericals like this. Okay, these numericals are easy. You just have to put the values of n, and also like this scale out and the scale up of a numerical. So okay, these are the numericals I have taken from PA. So if you want, you can open the practice assignment. I have just copied the questions over here. Okay, so the first one is, you have a DRAM module with a bus width of 64 bits, clock speed of 1 gigahertz, and operating in DDR. Okay, double data rate or 2 values per clock cycle. Okay, what is the maximum bandwidth of data transfer achievable with this module? Okay, so what is happening over here, like you have a DRAM. What is DRAM? Now DRAM is a normal RAM of your computer. Okay, now you have a bus width. Now what is the bus width? Bus width is the 64 bits and the clock speed is of 1 gigahertz. Okay, now what is this happening? This is actually operating in DDR. Okay, like what is the DDR? DDR is the like the 2 values per clock cycle mode. Okay, now we have to find the maximum bandwidth. Bandwidth is always, we know that it is in bytes per cycle, per bytes per second. Okay, and now what will be the, we have to find what will be the data transfer achievable with this module. Okay, so if you remember in the like resources that I gave, there are some certain formulas. Okay, follow those formulas. Okay, this particular formula is also I have taken from over there only. Okay, so whenever you see these types of numericals, just see what just see what type of, I will tell you a shortcut. Okay, basically what type of the units they are in, whether everything is in, but everything is in the particular unit you need or not. If it's not, then convert it to the unit that you want it to be, and afterwards you will just multiply it. Okay, so suppose over here, okay, we will go into the magnetic disk later on. So suppose over here the bus width that has been given. So we have a DRAM. Okay, we have a DRAM over here, and then it has a bus width. Okay, so the bus width is of 64 bits. So now the 64 bits needs to be converted to bytes, so that we can convert it to the bandwidth. Okay, because the bandwidth cannot be over here like in gigabyte, the bandwidth needs to be in gigabytes per second. Okay, so now what will we do for that? Now the problem is that the thing is, bandwidth needs to be found in like gigabytes per second. Okay, so the bandwidth over here, we will just find it like bus width equals to 64 bits. Okay, I think I need to write this, but the I will problem is that my, just give me a second. Okay, because my graphic tablet is just give me a second. Okay, because I these are the types of, like, I was thinking of doing it in Google Docs, but I don't know if Google Docs allows me to draw on it. I'm not sure. Also, my graphic tablet has been glitching a lot. Just give me a second, okay? Mm, okay. Okay, so okay, okay. So screen visible. Okay, we have a DRAM. Okay, the DRAM is a bus width. The DRAM has a bus width. Okay, DRAMs have a bus width. Okay, basically, and that bus width is of 64 bits. Okay, now we have a clock speed as well. Okay, now the clock speed is of 1 gigahertz. Okay, don't worry if you don't get this numericals at first. Okay, now problem is that I have to move it. Okay, okay, now it is this DRAM, this is occupying, like, suppose there is a DRAM like this. Okay, now this is like rotating. Okay, like imagine that this is rotating and this is reading, like this is reading over here for like this, and it is reading it on the basis of like two values per clock cycle. Okay, so now the clock cycle is 2. Okay, so what is the maximum value of data transfer achievable with this module? Okay, so first of all we need to convert the this to bits, this to bytes. Okay, this is in bits, so we need to convert it to bytes. Okay, so now how will we do that? So 64 by 8. Okay, so this will be around 8. Okay, so convert it to 8. Okay, so another thing is like this was around 2 if I'm not wrong. Yeah, clock cycle was 2. Okay, so now 64, the what will be the formula of the bandwidth? The formula of the bandwidth is actually bus width into clock speed into data rate. Okay, so this will be 64 into 2. Okay, this will be around 128. Okay, now the problem was that this was in bits, so we need to convert it like by 8, which we did previously. Okay, so this will be around wait, let me just come to this side. Wait, I will just erase this part because this is not needed. Yeah, okay, so this will be around 8 16. Yeah, 16 GB. Okay, so this is a DRAM. Okay, DRAM is of circle and this is reading it on the basis of 2 clock cycles. Okay, clock cycles. Okay, and then what happens is we have been given the bus width as well. Okay, so now this is reading, and now the bus width is given, and now the clock speed is also given like 1 gigahertz. Okay, so now don't forget to just give me a second. Okay, okay, so this will be, we will multiply everything. Okay, so this will be around 16 gigabytes per second. Okay, did it become too confusing?
Why did we multiply it by 2, ma'am, the clock speed?
This is because this says like 2 values per clock cycle. 2
Okay.
values per, okay, double data rate. Okay, double data rate or 2 values per clock cycle. Okay, one clockwise and one anti-clockwise. Okay, coming to the next numerical. Just give me a second, I will just move it a little bit less. Okay, okay, a magnetic disk. Okay, so now again there is a magnetic disk. Okay, so if you saw, a magnetic disk is something that looks like this. Okay, so now there is a thing like this over here. Okay, that reads the magnetic disks. Okay, I know I am not good at drawing, just a little bit. Okay, so now the magnetic disk is operating at 7200 rpm. Okay, rpm means rotations per minute. Okay, so now the disk is only once can only spin in one direction. Okay, so now it is going in only one direction. Okay, so now that the constant speed is of 7200 speed is of 7200 revolution per minute. Revolution per minute. Okay, revolution per minute. Okay, if the operating speed sends a request to the disk controller to fetch data from the disk, what is the worst case latency? Okay, so we need to find the latency. Okay, latency is the time. Okay, so how do we find the time basically? So first of all, we need to find the we have been given the revolutions or rotation whatever per minute. Okay, per minute we have to first of all do it to per second. Okay, so for per minute we need to convert it to 7200 per minute. This is per minute. Okay, so we need to convert it to by seconds. Okay, so for seconds this will be around 120. Okay, 120 revolutions rpm, like rps, it's now rps. Okay, 120 rps per second. Okay, no. Okay, so now this is rps 120 revolutions per second. Okay, so now the thing is like how much revolutions it takes for 120 revolutions per second. Okay, so like we will take time for one revolution. Okay, one revolution equals to 1 by 120 unitary method. Okay, so this will be around 1 by 120. So 1 by 120, so 0 point, okay, 8.33. Okay, 8.33 millisecond. Okay, so 833 into something. Okay, 8.33 millisecond. Am I wrong? Like 1 divided by 120. Can someone please
It's
correct?
right, ma'am. It's right.
Okay. Okay.
Ma'am,
Yeah. Yeah.
ma'am, can you please go through it again?
Yeah. Okay, so basically we have a magnetic disk like this. Okay, this is a magnetic disk and this is actually something that reads the magnetic disk. Okay, now what we had given was like it is spinning in one direction. Okay, and the constant speed was actually 700 revolutions per minute. Okay, now we had been given like 700 revolution per minute. We needed to find the latency. Okay, we need to find the latency. Now what is latency? Latency is actually time. Okay, so how do we find the time? Time is actually like like a distance by speed. Okay, or latency over here. We can just do the revolutions per minute was given. Okay, so now for the time what we needed to do, like per minute was given, so we needed to find per second. So by for finding per second, what we did was we just divided by 60. Okay, so 7200 was revolutions per minute, so we just divided by 60. So we got rps, so revolutions per second, so it was around 120. Okay, so this was around 120. So what will we do now? So we will just find time for one revolution unitary method. Like this takes like time for 120 revolutions is 1 second. Okay, so what will be time for one revolution? It will be 1 by 120. Okay, so this will be around 8.33 milliseconds. Okay, unitary
Yes,
method.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so there is also another numerical. This is the last numerical if I'm not wrong. So we have been given a particular two particular equations. Okay, this is this, if I'm not wrong, this has come in the previous pyq. So we have been given two particular equations. Okay, we have just have to find our functions over here. We just have to find the input size of n. Okay, which function we are sure that the input size of n is always less than 10. Okay, so what are we doing over here? We are basically putting like n less than 10. We will always take n less than 10. So we will take n equals to 1, n equals to 2, n equals to 3, like that. And we will put the value of n in the equations. Okay, so if you see over here, I have just put the value of n inside of the equations. And I will just see like whichever later on I will just add it like that. Okay, and then after adding we will just see where the equation is said, like where the value of 10 the value of n is taking the lesser time. Okay, the lesser time. So over here the equation 2 is actually taking the lesser time. Okay, like the equation 2, if you see over here, like I hope that it's visible. No, my cursor wasn't visible. Okay, so if you see over here, the thing was like in the equation 1, in the equation if this is the equation 1, is my cursor visible? Yeah, I hope that it's visible. Yeah, in the equation 1 what are we doing is we have been given two equations, like 1000 n plus 200 nanoseconds, and the other is n to the power 3 plus 5 nanoseconds, right? That is functioning on the input size of n, but we have to make sure that n is always less than 10. Okay, so how will we do that? We will just take n less than 10 and we will just put the values of n in each of the equations. Okay, so I have just put like each of the like I have just put n's n's value in each of these equations. I have like made a chart like that, okay, over here. And I have just found like what if the which equations is better if the n's value is less than 10. Obviously the equation 2, because the values are coming out to be less, okay. So this is how we will like solve these types of questions, okay. The don't worry, this the rpm and the these questions, I know that these are really vague. We will solve more such questions, okay. So don't worry. So yeah, okay, so any doubt in this question? Any doubt in this question, or shall I move on to the next question, like just this question? Okay. Okay. So there is this last question, okay. We will actually solve more such questions, okay, so don't worry. So like you have a data center where each server is 1 gigabits per second, okay, and then network connection, but overall data center has 10 gigabits per second connection. Our app becomes more popular and starts getting 10,000 requests per second. Each request needs a 50 kilobytes response. Which of the following is a better option? Scale up on each server and then scale out to multiple servers in the data center, okay. So 50 bytes, okay, so how will we do that, okay. So suppose let us see, okay. So what is happening over here? So we have a data center, okay. Let me just write. We have a particular data center, okay. Now that data center, there are each servers. Now each server is of 1 gigabits, yeah, 1 gigabit, so small b, so gigabits, okay. Now the overall data center has 10 gigabits, okay. Now the problem is that our app has become quite popular and it is getting 10,000 requests, okay. So now the question has asked us like what will we do, like whether we should scale up on a single server or we should like scale out to multiple servers. Now for this, what we have to keep in mind is that scaling up on a single server, what is scaling up in a single server, like it is making a single server like that is 1 GB per second. It is just upscaling that, okay, or making it bigger. And now what is scaling out to multiple server, that is like scaling out to different types of server in the same data center. So the data center is of 10 GB. So for that, what we have to do, we have to find the overall request size, okay. So the request, each request was a 50 kilobyte, okay. 50 kilobyte, small kilobyte, okay. Kilobyte, we have to make it to bits, we have to make it to bit, okay. If I'm not wrong, yeah, we have to make it to bits, okay. So 50 kilobytes, so 10,000 requests, so around 50 50 okay. And then by 8, if I'm not wrong, yeah. hmm. Kilobyte per second, so around, and then I will bytes, right, and then I will divide, I will multiply, sorry, multiply by 8, then yeah, okay. So 0.0000004, okay. So 4 kb, small b, sorry, this will be small b, okay. Just give me a second, this will be small b. So now what will we do is, this is actually 4 gigabits, okay. So no way we can actually scale out to like a 1 GB, scale up a small like 1 GB server, right. So it will be good to scale out to multiple data servers, okay, because like scaling up a 1 GB server is better than like scaling out to different servers, right. Like so we should scale out, um like uh like okay, I will just make it bigger, okay. So basically, okay, my cursor disappeared, just give me a second, okay. Okay, so what is happening over here is, we had a data center, okay, we had a data center. The overall data inside the data center was 10 GB, okay, 10 small GB. And then inside of the data center we had a particular server. That particular server was of 1 GB. We had launched an app. That particular app is now getting 10,000 requests per day, okay. And the 10,000 requests, each request is of 50 KB, okay. Now that each 50 KB is, now the 50 KB, the problem is that inside of the 50 KB, the we have to find like now we have to find that the each request is a 4 GB, okay. Now the total request of that 50 KB into 10,000 requests is a 4 GB. So now what should we do? Should we scale up the server that we were currently using, the 1 GB server, or should we scale out to multiple servers? So like we should scale out, right, because like using the 1 GB server, instead of using 1 GB server, that instead of scaling up the small 1 GB server to 4 GB, it is better to scale out to multiple servers that can handle the 4 GB data, right. Is there any doubt in this question? I know
No.
this Is there any doubt in this question?
Basically, you're saying that four this of 1 GB each. Is it like that? That is how we scale out.
No, no, no. This will be like scaling out to multiple server. Okay, scaling out to multiple servers. So each server will take the distribute the load. Okay, so suppose one server takes 1 GB, another server takes 500 MB, like that. Okay,
Okay, ma'am.
so that is what
Ma'am,
scaling out basically means. Yeah. Yeah.
ma'am, so when the first option will be correct, that
the first
scale
option
upon each
the
number of
first
server.
option, like scale up on a single server, right? When this load, like let me come back, when this load, like this the request load, right? When this request load will be lesser than the server load. Okay, so the server load currently is 1 GB, right? 1 gigabit per second network. Each server has a 1 gigabit per network. Okay, so when that will be lesser than 1 gigabit, okay, that way, that is when we can like scale up on a single server.
Okay, ma'am.
Can you please repeat that, ma'am? I didn't get it. Hello?
Ma'am is not audible.
I think her this froze.
Yeah.
Okay, don't worry. Okay, we will practice more such numericals. Okay, don't worry about that, because there are also more numericals in the week 7, and from the week 7
Ma'am, you
onwards,
were not audible. You were not audible for past 2 minutes or 1 minute.
I was not audible. What is till the last? When did you hear? Till
Uh,
I,
you,
I I asked you to repeat what you said about why when do you scale up rather than scaling out, and then you were
oh,
not audible for 2 minutes. Yeah.
okay. So when do we scale up instead of scaling out? Okay, so where we scale up is when we scale up is when you see this, like the request, right? The request part of the request of the app. Okay, this is 4 GB right now, right? When that will be lesser, or that will be a little bit more than the particular server. Okay, that's this server has 1 gigabit per network, 1 gigabit per second right now, but our app has 4 gigabits. Okay, so that is actually quite a large difference right now. Okay, so when that is actually a little bit like say it was 1.5. Okay, our application was 1.5 gigabits per second, so that is when we will scale up on a single server, not right now when it is 4 gigabits right now, and the total data center has like 10 gigabits right now. We can scale out to multiple data center, like we can distribute the load to 4 different servers, so that it is a more efficient for us. Okay.
Got it,
uh,
ma'am.
okay. Yeah. Okay, so we will be doing more such numericals from week 7 onwards, because there are quite a few numericals like that. Okay, also we are in week 7, right? Yeah, okay, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Hmm.
This we don't have quite we in morning sir discussed week 7 AQs, and now
Hmm.
we are discussing a little bit of the theory part and the problems. And that too for only for 1 hour. That's it. That's
Hmm.
not tomorrow's a deadline, and we're done with week 7. So not much. Week 7 discussion has not happened much.
Hmm. 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 Yeah. Also, like week 7 is quite heavy on the numerical, because the numerical these types of numericals, they do come in quizzes. So yeah, don't worry, we will cover such more such numericals later on. Don't worry about that. Also, yeah, these were all of the numericals. I have written the why this should be scaled up. Okay, over here.
Okay, ma'am.
So,
Okay, ma'am.
hmm. Also, you have such numericals in why I wrote it inside of this part of the document is because you have such numericals in the GA, so you can kind of refer to this like how to solve this. Okay, so you can refer to this document. Okay, so any doubts in what we covered today? Let me come back to the meet. Any doubt in what we covered today, or
Ma'am.
yes, yes, okay, yes.
Yeah, I said,
ma'am,
ma'am, no.
Okay, okay, yeah, okay. Hmm. Yes, Bhumika.
ma'am, I don't know. Have you covered like what is the difference between data replication and data redundancy?
Yeah,
Because
yeah. Over here. Yeah. Wait, wait. Just give me a second. Yeah, this one, right? Replication and redundancy. Yeah.
Okay, ma'am, I will watch recording.
Okay, this is actually a local recording. Okay, so it will be uploaded later on to YouTube. It is actually not directly streamed. Okay, so watch it from the videos folder, not the live. Okay,
Ma'am, sorry, from where I have to watch?
in YouTube only, Mad One, but the it will be uploaded on videos folder. Okay, like there are home video live and
Videos,
then
yeah.
like that. Okay, yeah.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. So, any doubts in any of the concepts that we covered today, or else we will move on to some doubts.
Um, Ma'am, just want to mention one thing.
Mm-hmm.
This app context dot push is working. You told me
Mm-hmm.
to do some changes that day, na ma'am?
Yeah.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I found that the database model name, we should use exactly what they are expecting, because
Yes,
that is
yes.
where
Mm-hmm.
the problem is lying,
Yes.
which was
Mm-hmm.
very difficult to identify otherwise, why tb.createAll is working and why push is not
Mm-hmm.
working.
Yes,
I
yes.
think all
Mm-hmm.
students can also, who are facing issue with this push, the
Mm-hmm.
DB models should have the same name as given by the assignment. If they maintain the DB name as same, I mean the database model number, student or class or course,
Mm-hmm.
if they maintain it same, push is working. So
Yes, also
this,
because
But
this is that is because like when you're using with app.app create like with db dot create all, when you're using that, that is also creating the database from new, and when you're using a data like database names different from the ones given in the test cases, that will create pass all of the test cases, right? Because you're creating the database from new. But when you're using app context, but that won't pass the private test cases. When you're using the app context dot push, you are actually using the you are pushing the data that already exists in the backend, so that
yes,
will
ma'am.
work. Okay.
So I think the test queries or test methods are incorporating those exact names. So that's why
Mm-hmm.
they're failing with our this thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So students can follow this and just maintain the same name for the database tables.
even after maintaining the same table names, the database was not getting created with that push that
Yeah,
No,
in the
creation will not
local.
happen. But
Mm-hmm. Mm.
when we are uploading as assignment, they have the database already. They are testing against
correct
their
correct
existing
correct
database.
correct correct that
So
is
for
why they are saying
assignment,
not to use
correct,
the
correct.
create all.
But if we want to locally use first time, if database is not existing, it is better to use create all, because then locally it will create. Other locally we will
Yeah,
not
yeah,
be able to test if we don't use create all.
yeah, yeah.
That also we so I mean,
But once it is created, I think push
then
works.
push is working. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, any doubts regarding what we covered today? Or else I will stop sharing my screen. Okay. I will stop sharing my screen. Okay, Bhumika, I think you had some doubts regarding lab assignment. Uh,
Yes, ma'am.
okay. Do you want to share your screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, do share.
Yes, ma'am. Just give me 2 minutes. Actually, some
Hmm.
work is there in this too.
Okay, okay, sure, sure. In the meantime, if anyone else has any doubts, they can unmute and ask.
Ma'am, for today it is our
Yes,
discuss.
yes, 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 yes. Mm-hmm.
Ma'am, you'll be
Okay.
uploading these week 6 and week 7 notes in the supplementary contents, right? Or is it already uploaded?
Oh, oh yeah, yeah. Later on, I will.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. Because the links that you gave now,
Hmm.
once we come out of the call, it will get lost. So
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, yeah.
the
Mm-hmm.
drive link.
Mm-hmm. Okay, okay, okay.
Also, if anybody knows, our answer transcript is available in the documents to download.
Answer transcript. Yeah, it has been released. The scores have all been released, right?
Course are released, ma'am, but
Hmm.
answer transcripts are available.
Answer transcript. Oh, okay, but I think the answer transcripts have the page has been changed. Okay, for the answer transcripts, IITM has changed. It was like score check or something like that. Okay.
Okay, but that link they used to share, na ma'am?
No, no, it is there. Now I'm seeing in my this is there.
Okay, okay.
It's where? I mean,
PDF, yeah, it's there in documents for download only. Feb 2020.
Application
Acha,
content.
acha, sorry, I am checking 2024. Sorry, sorry.
hi, that's what 25 nothing is available.
Yeah, I don't think it's
This
there.
is the
Yeah,
last one is
not
actually killing.
released. And
Last
ma'am,
one.
one thing
Hmm.
that they have released score, so we can check it score, and there is also mentioned question number and answer. Okay, numbers are.
Yeah.
So, but
Hmm.
I am not getting which question paper was for me. Then it
Uh,
would
That
be better.
that you will get in your hall ticket. Check your hall
yeah.
ticket.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
That question paper set you can download.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Ma'am, can you share my screen?
Yeah, yeah. Hmm, hmm. Start sharing. Hmm.
This is the link where you will get your
Hmm. The
marks.
score checker. Hmm, hmm, hmm.
Oh, thank you so much.
Can you click and check that and confirm that you got what you want?
Checking right now.
Yeah, okay. 1 minute.
Ma'am, it is not passing.
It is. It is not. Wait. Mute. Unmute yourself.
Yes, ma'am, it is not passing any test case.
Okay. Okay. Hmm. Okay.
Mm.
Okay. Go to app.py. Go to app. Yeah. Okay. It's okay. Go to app.py. Show me the app.py.
And ma'am, what changes that you have like told to make it when you were last like 92 case
Yeah.
were
Go
completed?
up. Go up a bit. I will be able to see. Go up a bit. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. You have made those changes. Hmm. It's okay. Okay. So do one thing. Run a Rapid API. Do you have? Yeah. You have Rapid API installed, right? New request. Go to this new request. Run the application first. Three dots. Three dots.
Yes, ma'am.
No, no. Is the application running? App.py, is the app.py running?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, then go to new request.
Yes, ma'am. And
Um,
ma'am, here it was facing some like connection error.
hmm, get to shall I send a link because I have VS Code open, so I will just send a link to you. Just give me a second. Okay, post request. I have written in chat. Just come to chat once and try to send this inside a post. Make the get. You see the get. I've written it in GChat. Okay. Also send a post request. I have written the link in GChat.
Oh, okay, ma'am. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Also the post request you need to send. So click get and then make it post. Yeah, come to GChat. Gmeet, sorry, Gmeet. Oh, I am saying GChat. Yeah, Gmeet. Mm-hmm. Copy fully.
Mhm.
No, no. Reload. Okay. Paste and change get to post. Okay. get to post. Okay, and then change the body to JSON. No, 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 don't send, don't send, don't send. You need to write in JSON as well.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I sent that as well in the G chat. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Copy from curly braces to curly braces. Don't take the name. Don't take the name. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. I will admit that. I will.
Huh. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Send. Send.
Yes, ma'am. It is showing this only.
Refused. Go to the use. Go to app.py.
App.py. Okay.
Yeah, app.py beside new request. Yeah, you
Yes,
see.
ma'am.
Yeah, yeah. Beside go, you see the three dots. Open terminal. New terminal. Is the application running? If you do you have you written Python app.py?
Yes, ma'am. I have written like I have installed everything.
No, no, no. Show me where. Show me. You see the three PowerShells running, like in
Yes,
the side right.
yes,
Open
yes.
one PowerShell. Open one PowerShell.
Okay.
Ah, okay. It's not running there. Okay. Open the second PowerShell. Okay. Open the first PowerShell. Okay. Now in one of them, write Python space app.py. Application is not running. Enter.
Hmm,
Okay.
why? Uh, like
Why is it not showing? Why is it not showing anything? Just open the okay db.init of app inside of uh, okay db.init line 10. Okay, line 10 in your line number 10. If I'm okay db.init of app you have written, right? It should be, yeah, it's fine, right? db equals to sql alchemy. Did you not write?
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
after, yeah, in line 10 you didn't give brackets after SQL Alchemy.
Okay.
Yeah, now try to run again. Enter. Is it running?
Yes, ma'am. It is running.
Um. Okay, go to the request in Rapid API.
No, it is loading actually.
Yeah, it is loading. No, it is not running. App.appcontext.push. Okay, where did you write app.appcontext.push? Okay, app.appcontext.push. Okay, wait, let me check.
Ma'am, it is correct. I have to
App
like.
context, after app context you need to add brackets.
Hmm.
Now run the application again.
And ma'am, is this fine?
Hmm. Wait,
The
wait. First of all, let us create the database. Yes, everything is fine. First of all, let us create the. First of all, let us run the application and see what errors there are.
enable to
Okay. Now do one thing. Uncomment the with app.app context.db.create all and comment the part with yeah.
the
Hmm.
I have to comment
Yeah.
the point.
Go up and then comment the part with comment this part. Run it. Yeah. Python app. What did it say? Did you run it?
Yes, ma'am. Just
Uh,
taking time.
uh, go up a bit in the errors. Show me the errors. Go up a bit. Self or dialect. Okay, 2257. Go up a bit in the terminal. Additional argument got nullable. Go up a bit in the terminal. Yeah. Go up. Go up. Yeah. The. No. SQL alchemy missing. No. Go down a bit. Attribute function has no object push. No. Go down a bit. Yeah, there. Hmm. Mm, nullable. Wherever written nullable, it should be NULLABLE. Check the models spelling
Yes,
mistake.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am. Here.
Yeah, NULLABLE. Now try to run it again.
Now I installed class stressful again by mistake.
Oh, okay, it's okay. It will just say satisfying the requirements.
Yes, ma'am. But it will take some time. I don't know why it is lagging so much, my PC.
It's okay. It happens. You have to clear the cache and the temporary folders. Like later on, try to do Windows R and then type temp and then clear those folders. Maybe. Okay,
Okay, ma'am.
you have written nullable twice, if I'm not wrong, because it shows question mark of two. Yeah,
Ma'am, how you know that there will be two nullables like I have written?
it was written like two of two. Change that nullable in line 32, 34. Sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Also, there is, if I'm not wrong, is there another nullable? Just check once.
Mm, no, ma'am.
No. Just control Z once. Uh-huh. Now write in, yeah, click it over there. Like, yeah, write it. Just type. Yeah. Click it inside NULABLE. Yeah. Enter. Yeah. See, there was another one. Now it's okay. Now every level is gone.
Ma'am, now I can write pipe.
Yeah. Python app.py.
Request parser.
Request parser has no attribute. Request spelling is wrong. REQUEST it should be. Line 65. Line 65 it has given. Go to line 65.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
Every one of them in line 70 as well.
Oh God. Yes, ma'am.
Line 75 as well.
Ma'am, it is assertion error.
Function mapping is overriding course API. Okay. Okay. Course API. Course API. Okay, if your function mapping is overriding. Where have you written like course API with small c? Just try to find it once. Course API with small c. COURAC API. COURAC API. No. Yeah, you have written two course API. Second one should be student API. Line 250. Yeah.
Value error, ma'am.
Value error. URL must start with a slash. Where have you not given a slash? Okay, slash API. Okay, let me see. Okay, line number 251. Yeah. Move the cursor, move, stop there. After move a little bit left, right, move a little bit right. Yeah, more right, more right. Yeah, there. No, left. Before API, it should have a slash. Yeah. Hmm. It's running. Now try to send the request. Go to the request, up, go see app.py, new request, request 3. Yeah. So go to the request that you typed before. Now click send. Just click send.
500 internal error.
Roll number equals to roll number. Student dot roll number, line number 154.
Student will go and visit the roll number first. Hmm. It should be students.
No. Students. It should be student. S should be capital. Okay. Ma'am, line 250 line needs more changes. Okay, first line 250 needs more changes. Student API. Oh no. Array, you remove the course. It should be student in line 250 slash API
Yes,
slash
yes, ma'am.
student.
Yes,
Hmm.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay, I have copied this and I just moved over. I didn't know.
Hmm. Thank you so much. Yeah, Vansh. Thank you. Yeah.
No.
Okay, and go to line 154. No need to restart. No need to restart. Go to line number 154. Go to line number 154 and write the student in caps. S in caps. Student
Mhm.
S in caps. Yeah. This one. Yeah, S in caps. Yeah, done. Yeah, try to send a request.
Yes,
Yay, it's
ma'am.
done. Yeah, it's done. Now try to click on post. Click on post.
Yes, ma'am.
Click select get. Yeah, and besides student, don't click send. Besides student, write /1. Yeah, send. Yes, it's working.
Ma'am, I wanted to ask this in that session also,
Hmm.
like why we are writing one and then again two,
It
why
is
it
the
is.
id, it is the associated id, because get needs a associated parameter with the student, right? How will get know what student to fetch? So that is why we have provided the student id. If you see the response in post in the get, just remove the terminal a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
uh, yeah, just remove, just make it smaller, just like reduce the size. No,
Mm,
just by cursor, by cursor make it smaller. By cursor, like if you hover the terminal on the top, no, hover the terminal, hover the cursor on top of the terminal. Cursor को terminal के ऊपर लेके जाओ.
yes, ma'am.
हाँ, वैसे वैसे कर्सर को टर्मिनल के ऊपर लेके जाओ. Which one is your cursor? Oh, this
Oh,
is
okay,
good.
okay, ma'am.
Yeah,
Okay.
now, yeah, you saw that. Now make it
Yes,
small.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
हाँ,
Okay.
वैसे ही हाँ.
Ma'am, it is
नहीं,
not
थोड़ा
happening.
सा राइट में लेके जाओ. हाँ, अब नीचे करो. हाँ, नीचे करो. हाँ, देखो, यहाँ पे स्टूडेंट इज टू 1 है, स्टूडेंट आईडी इज टू 1. दैट इज हाउ वी आर यूजिंग गेट. ओके, टू फेच अ स्टूडेंट बाय यूजिंग अ पर्टिकुलर स्टूडेंट आईडी. ओके.
Ma'am, but for post we were not doing that.
Yeah, because for post we are creating a new student, so we are sending the new student resource to a database. So that particular student id doesn't exist because student is auto increment. So we have to add the student id first to the database. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, this will take some time, don't worry, you will get it. Okay, so now it's working. So similarly, like if students and this one is the student part, so if the courses and the others also take some problem, okay, do the course part, new request mein jao, app.py ke yeah, right send, yeah, send quickly, send. Yeah, it's getting created. Okay, everything is fine. Now submit. Okay.
And ma'am, that changes for
Hmm.
uh,
हाँ हाँ हाँ, वो वाला, हाँ, विथ ऐप डॉट विथ डीबी का जो है वो, उसको कमेंट करना है और ऊपर जाके ऐप डॉट ऐप पुश जो है उसको अनकमेंट करना है.
can you repeat again, ma'am? What?
Yeah, just go up,
Yes, ma'am.
go up, full up. Just below the database, you will comment out those lines like with day. Go up, more up. Yeah, with app dot app context on, yeah, huh, just over here. Yeah, comment these two lines. Okay, comment this line with app dot app context. Yeah, comment this line, and db dot create all, comment that line as well. Okay, yeah, and then go up, go more up. Yeah, this line. Yeah, uncomment it. Okay,
Okay,
you're
okay.
done. Now you can submit.
Ma'am, can you please wait for just 1 second?
Yeah, sure. Submit.
Ma'am, you
Yeah.
can stop the recording. Just it will take hardly 1 minute.
Yeah. No, it's okay. I will, the recording, if I stop right now, then it will be kind of cut off right in the middle. So do no need to delete the previous zip. Just like submit with whatever name you are making. Okay.
Can I delete it, ma'am?
No need to delete that. Just make a zip right now with whatever name you do. Okay. If it's working, we just need to see whether you are getting 100 out of 100 in test cases. Right. You won't submit right now.
Oh, okay, ma'am.
Just make a name with 222 and then just test run to see whether you are getting 100 out of 100 or not. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Also, the next assignment, lab assignment, will be the last one, the week 7 one. So it's, yeah. Okay. Open. Yeah. Okay.
Ma'am, 46.15.
Yeah. At least it's not zero anymore. Okay. So now we just need to see what test cases you are failing. Okay. So show me the test cases that you are failing. What test cases is it not passing?
Okay, ma'am. Pass it. Failed.
Verify student resource. हाँ, नीचे जाओ. Okay. Okay, नीचे. Okay, got it. नीचे. Go down. Okay, got it. Go to the code. Yeah, show me the code. Amplify. Okay. So SQL Alchemy database is getting created at least. Okay, show me the models. Go down a bit. So, no, not that. Okay, stay here. Course students enrollment cascade. Did you use all comma delete? Yeah. On the string course. Yeah. Okay. Course. Go down a bit. Show me the enrollment and do Control B first. Control B. B for Bombay. Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. Student ID, foreign key, nullable. Okay. Okay, e-student ID you used over here, but did you use e-student ID later on, or did you use student ID in line number 33? Because I use student ID.
Ma'am, is this fine now?
Yeah, okay. Okay, go down. Okay, you use course API twice. Why did you? Okay, course API. Yeah. Okay, that's good. Okay. Now, okay. Okay. Okay, show me the enrollments table. The problem should be inside of the enrollments table. Course and students, we made it right. Okay, show me the enrollments table. Go down, full down.
Yes.
Enrollments API. I mean, yeah, go down, full down. Yeah, okay, yeah, over here. Raise found error status code append app append. Yeah, okay. Just this is the get part of the enrollment, right? Yeah, okay. Enrollment ID, student ID. Yeah. Now try to submit once because I think that was the only problem that was getting caused. Yeah. Also, if this doesn't work, then reach out via mail because okay, I don't know that how much the recording, like my local recording is allowed. Okay, so reach out via mail if this doesn't work. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Two two two. Yeah, deadline is today. I will reply immediately. Don't worry. Okay. Okay, that actually worked. Okay. So reach out via okay. If you don't mind, Vansh, do you mean do you want to reach out via mail? Yeah, sure. You can also reach out via mail. Okay. So Bhumika, reach out via mail. Okay. I will reply. I will check and see what's wrong. Okay. So I will now
Okay.
stop the recording. Okay. Thank you, everyone. So thank you for being so patient with me. Okay, you
Thank you,
got.
ma'am.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
That's
Good
good.
night.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Good night. Yeah. I will stop the recording. Just give me a
Good
sec.
night, ma'am.
Yeah. Night. Good night.